morning, good evening, good afternoon, and remember, Context is Everything Media Network founder and CEO John Michael is reading a textbook again, cover to cover. This one is from 1940. You hear that? This is from before our involvement in World War II. This is a textbook called Pioneers and Patriots. It's from a Catholic school in 1940. And this chapter is called George Washington. Early life. Every 22nd of February, we honor the memory of the great American. George Washington was born on February 22nd, 1732. His birthplace was Bridge Creek, Virginia. His parents were George Bridges Creek. What? The parents of George Washington were fairly well off. They lived on a very fine estate. George Bridges Creek is a great name for somebody. Wow, that's a great name. George Bridges Creek. Washington's education. There is little known about the early education of George Washington. His father died when George was about 12 years old. The father's death caused some changes in the family plans. As a result, George did not receive as good an education as his older brothers did. They had been sent to England to be educated. George was educated in Virginia. The colonial schools at the time were few and they were poor. However, George Washington was serious about his schoolwork. He attended a country school. There he learned reading, writing, and arithmetic. He also learned some geography and a little grammar. His favorite study was arithmetic. He learned to keep accounts. The boy, George Washington, took great pride in his penmanship. Some of the very neat copybooks that he made have been kept as treasures. A young surveyor. The real wealth of the people of Virginia in those days was in land. Some of the landowners had so much land that they really had no idea how much they did own. This was because of three reasons. 1, the country was still new. 2, there were very large areas of unexplored land. 3, not much of the land had ever been measured. There was plenty of work for surveyors in Virginia. A surveyor is a person who makes an exact measurement of land. George Washington decided to study land surveying. It was well that he liked arithmetic because a surveyor must do a great deal of figuring. 1940. A landowner. His experience as a surveyor gave George Washington a real interest in land ownership. His brother Lawrence became the head of the family when their father died. When Lawrence Washington died, George became the owner of a plantation. Lawrence Washington had called his home Mount Vernon. George became very fond of this proud of Mount Vernon. He was a thrifty man. He began to buy more land. By the time he was 21 years old, George Washington was one of the large landowners of Virginia. Major Washington. Governor Dinwiddie appointed Major George Washington Major of the Virginia Militia. A militia is a band or group of citizens trained for military service. The militia is not a regular army. It only serves in serious difficulty. Only in times of serious difficulty is the militia ever called upon to serve. A trusted messenger. About the time of George Washington was 21 years old, trouble between England and the settlers and the French began. The French decided to build forts on the Ohio Valley. Governor Dinwiddie was the governor of Virginia, a British man. He decided that the French needed to be warned that the Ohio Valley belonged to the English. Governor Dinwiddie chose Major Washington for the task. This proved to be a wise choice. Major Washington finally reached the French commander. The letter from Governor Dinwiddie was delivered. The French received Major Washington kindly. They were most polite to the young messenger. Major Washington was given a sealed reply to carry back to Governor Dinwiddie. After an official return journey, Major Washington delivered the reply to the governor. It was not a satisfactory reply because the French refused to move from the Ohio Valley. This was one of the causes for the French and Indian War. You will remember George Washington fought in this war, and he is now how he saved what was left of the Braddock Army. After the war, George Washington left the army and returned home. Later, when the American colonies rose in rebellion against England, George Washington became the commander-in-chief of the American army. This great leader served in 3 armies: the Virginia Militia, the British Army during the French and Indian War, and the American Army during the Revolutionary War. Historians sometimes refer to George Washington as the link between the French and Indian War and the Revolutionary War. Later, you will study about the Revolution and the United States became a nation. You will learn that George Washington also took an active part in the Revolution. Have a good day, good evening, or good afternoon, depending upon when you watch this.